Good morning, family, and welcome back to Tuesday Transformation Tidbits, where we gather together to fuel your faith, to sharpen your focus, and to push you into the next level. Can you believe that we have already entered into the month of December? As a matter of fact, today is December the 2nd, and I don't know about you, but this has been a very interesting year. It's been a very transformative year for me. Things that I thought would happen didn't happen, and things that I didn't expect to happen happen. But one thing that I can say for sure for this year of 2025 has been an instructable year for me, a year that God has given me instruction, a year that has taught me a lot of things. And on this last month in December of 2025, we're going to deal with a series. This month is going to be really a great month. It's going to be a month that's going to withhold a lot of different things that we're going to do to close out this year with Tuesday Transformation Tidbits. We're going to be dealing with the title in December, Finish Strong, Becoming Who God Saw All Along. We got to finish strong because we in this last month. We're going to finish strong, and we're going to becoming what God already saw inside of us to come. What he's already predicted for us to do. That's the thing that we're going to become. This month, we're going to be focusing on the identity. We're going to be focusing on discipline. We're going to be focusing on endurance. We're going to be focused on alignment and stepping into the next year. That's the things that we're going to look at on this year. We want to be prepared, not just inspired for 2026, but we want to walk in 2026 with a sense of preparedness, with a sense of readiness, with a mind to do what it is that we're going to do, what it is that God has called us to do for 2026. So when we begin, for me, as I began to look at this year, because in the month of December, a lot of times I sit down and I begin to look at some things that have transpired so far. And I began to check my pulse to find out exactly where I am for this year. And as I was beginning to really look over some of 2025, and I'm not going to go so much into it this morning because the last Tuesday of this month, I'm really going to do a retrospect of things that occurred in 2025 for me and things that occurred for Tuesday Transformation Tidbits. But when I started out this year, I started out talking about the unstoppable momentum that was going to be the theme of the entire year. We were going to have unstoppable momentum. We were going to do it with acceleration and with movement. But what I found out when I began to look at it, momentum is not always the fast. It's not always the visible. It's not always the glamorous things that we see. Sometimes for me, as I begin to look right quick, momentum is a whisper. Sometimes it's a quiet step forward. When everything around you is telling you really to stand still. I learned that so far this year. I realized when God dropped the unstoppable momentum in my spirit, it didn't come from a place of perfection. And even now, as I'm in December, I'm still not at a place of perfection. But it was born from persistency. And as I began to travel through 2025, I began to understand why God gave me the words that He gave me: consistency. I got to have consistency in whatever I do. I got to complete the thing that God called me to do. And I got to show up even when I didn't want to show up. I got to show up even when things was seeming to be chaotic for me, even when things that I wanted to stop it and I wanted to sit down. And as a matter of fact, to be honest, I wanted to go somewhere and get lost. But consistency was a word that I had to keep doing. It was a word that I had to keep flowing. Consistency, and then I had to be committed. And I went out with some of my sisters on Saturday, and we were just talking about some things and I was sharing with them those two words, consistency and commitment. They don't mean the same thing. But that was something that God gave to me, and we're going to deal with it at the end of the month. But I had to realize for 2025, every small choice I had to take a small choice to show up. I had to take a small choice to pray. I had to take a small choice this year to even believe and to hope. But what I realized with every choice that I've taken this year, it was causing some traction. It was causing me to be consistent. It was causing me to be commitment in the things that God has called me to. And now that I'm in the month of December, I'm at the final stretch. I'm strengthened for the last push, is what I want to look at. And on this morning, we're going to look at Galatians 6:9, and it said, let us not become weary. Don't get tired in the things that you're doing, because the season that you're going to reap for all of the effort that you put in, for everything that you did, for every step that you made, for every traction that came about that you have done for 2025, it's going to come a time that you're going to reap. But you got to be persistent. You got to be committed. You got to be constantly going forward. You got to do everything in your might to stay alive. When we look at Galatians 6, the key ideal is that the final stretch is often the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing to accomplish because the closer to breakthrough, the closer to purpose, the closer to your destination that you get becomes the hardest. They often say when you're traveling, the closer you get to the city of where you're going, the heavier the traffic becomes. I want to tell you, the closer that we enter into 2026, the heavier the traffic that's going to come. The heavier as you travel through December, it's going to get chaotic more so than it was in the previous months that we traveled in 2025, because the enemy of your soul does not want you to make it into your purpose. The enemy of your soul does not want you to receive the entire thing that the Father wants you to have before you enter in 2026. So the closer you get, the heavier the traffic. But you got to keep giving track. You got to keep moving. You got to keep going. You got to keep pushing. You got to push this last month in 2025. You see, when you look at a marathon, every marathon, when a runner is in a marathon, and I can relate because I ran in high school and in college, but every runner in a marathon, what they do when they're in it and they get midpoint, or and they get closer to the end, actually when they pass midpoint, they begin to say, should I stop or should I continue to stretch and go forward? And the reason why they ask should they stop or go forward is because every muscle in their body is about to collapse. Every mindset that they have, they're about to collapse. But they got to remember the why of what it is that they're doing, the why of what it is that they want to accomplish. And I want to encourage us on today as we're going through this last month. Remember the why of what God promised you in the beginning of 2025. And that why is that unction. That why is that push. That why is what you're going to need to push you to the end. It's the strength that God's going to give you to push you to the end. You see, the final stretch of this year is going to require you to have strength. It's going to require you to get some strategy, and it's going to require you to get some spiritual alignment. You got to have the strength to finish. You see, the enemy of our soul, they don't mind if we keep going, but they just don't want us to get to the end. So I want to encourage us on this month to finish, to keep going. Get you some strength. As Papa used to say, I need my spinach in order to go. Get you some spinach in order for you to keep going. Re-strategize the things that you have in order for you to get completion to the end. You see, you made it the 11th month through. Now it's time to finish strong. You got to finish that 12th month. The final stretch, God isn't asking you really to run harder. But what is he saying? I'm empowering you to run smarter. I'm empowering you to be steadier. I'm empowering you to continue to be strong. This is the time that it's going to count. I just got 3 tidbits and then I'm done for this morning. Tidbit number 1 is stretching requires renewal, not more hustle. Renew what you already have. You see, you don't need to do more grinding. You need just a little more grace. That's all I need to run this race. Strength is exchange and it's not manufactured. What do I mean when I say strength is exchange and it's not manufactured? You see, an individual can gain and give strength by supporting, by encouraging, by connecting with other people, rather than by manufacturing it entirely on their own self. You see, when we look at it, when we feel tired, God is offering us divine renewal. That's the exchange that the Father gives us for our tiredness. The exchange is that we can come to Him. The exchange that we can stretch in exchange is that we can look to Him. So it's not something that we're manufacturing over ourselves. It's something that we're gaining strength by support from the Father. We're gaining it through the Father to renew our strength in everything that we do. So our strength comes from the Father. And this last month, we got to show the Father that we've got strength to do just what He's called us to do. We've got to make sure that we rely on Him. So tidbit number one is that strength requires renewal. We got to have some renewal in this month. We got to run the race that the Father has called us to run. When we begin to look at my tidbit number two, stretching clarifies what matters. When we begin to look at it, when we've stretched, that really clarifies what matters with us. Why do I say that? Because what urgencies that you had in July isn't relevant now in December. The things that meant something to you in July, now that you're in December, it doesn't matter. Why? Because clarification of what it is that the Father was calling you to do is taking place. You see, the final stretch strips you of distraction. When we get into this final stretch, what happens is more I'm sorry, I can't even say it this morning. Distractions come. You see, the enemy doesn't want us to make it in, so he's constantly sending distraction. So strengthening or stretching is going to clarify what matters because distractions are here. And at the end of the year, there is so much pressure. There's so much comparison that's going on. There's so much going on because of the holiday season. Stretch is coming, our stress is coming our way. When we get to the end of the year, our mind begins to look at things that transpire. So old cycles are coming our way. Unmet expectations is coming our way. And all of that is noise. All of that is causing noise and distraction. So we've got to move out the distractions because those distractions is narrowing our vision of what we're able to see to get to the end of the year. But we don't need it, our vision to be widened by the worry of distractions. We need our vision to be narrowed, to keep focus, to look at what matters, what's relevant for where we have to go. So what must we carry into the new year? And what must we leave behind should be the focus. And I want us to think about that because next week I'm coming back with a guest and we're going to have talking tea. And we're going to talk about what we need to carry with us into the next year. We're going to talk about getting rid of that clutter because that clutter, once again, can't take us to the next year. That clutter can't take us to the place of purpose that the Father has called for. That clutter can't help us when we're elevated and we're standing tall among the stuff that we were hidden by. We're going to talk about that. But we got to look at it today and we got to stretch and get some clarity. My third point is that stretching strengthens what you need for the next. As you stretch in this final month, it's going to strengthen what you need for the next. You see, the difficulty of stretching is preparing the durability for the next season. And I want us to think about that because in week 3, I'm coming back with another guest and we're going to have tea and talk in week 3. And we're going to talk about your purpose is demanding endurance and not excuses. So when you look at it, stretching is going to strengthen what you need for the next. You see, God is fortifying your stamina. He's fortifying your discipline and he's fortifying the spiritual sensitivity that you're going to have. Why? Because 2026 is going to be a year of performance and not preparation. You were prepared in 2025. 2025 was the instructional year, was the year that God was transforming you, was the year that he was preparing you. He was pouring into you. He was pulling you from among them. He was telling you to release things. But 2025, you got to perform, family. You got to get in there and you got to do what is called of you to do. It's not about thinking, but it's about doing. Think about it for a moment. What God is strengthening you right now. What areas in your life is he strengthening you? What areas in your life is he expanding you for the next? What areas in your life is he telling you to move out, to declutter? What's the purpose in your life demanding right now? It's demanding for you to endure. Endure things that you're going through. The scripture says, endure things as a good soldier. We got to endure some things because when we get in 2026, it's time for us to perform. So my next thing, as we talked about it, we got to talk about the point that the final stretch requires a focus shift. This morning, family, I want us to look at what it is that we're focusing on, what it is that's getting our attention. Because what you look at in this final stretch is going to give you the direction you need for 2026. What you're doing right now in December of 2025 is going to give you what you need as we navigate into 2026. We have to ask ourselves some real questions in this month. What is stealing our focus? What is it that is coming in and distracting us? Because that very thing that distracts us is the very thing that's trying to capture and to take hold and to imprison our purpose. But what deserves our focus? Think about it. What really deserves your focus? What really deserves what you're doing right now? I want you to know something about distraction. This is something that I had to come to myself, especially in the last couple of weeks. In the last couple of weeks before the week of Thanksgiving, I was really sick the entire week of Thanksgiving. I mean, so sick until people who were really close to me were really the only people that knew. As a matter of fact, I didn't have Thanksgiving food and all that kind of things. I was with my family and we celebrated, but I wasn't able to eat and really enjoy them as I wanted. And I began to say, I got a real bad food poisoning. I got it real bad the Saturday before the week of Thanksgiving. And it was excruciating pain that I was in. But I began to say, Father, why did I get it right now? What's going on? Right before Thanksgiving. I was so weak and wasn't able to walk until it was amusing to kind of sort of to me. But then on the other hand, I'm like, what in the world is going on? And I realized as I was going through them that whole thing get real, but distraction. When I get distracted, I sleep. When I get distraction, oppression and depression tries to come in. And I had to come to myself and realize, and I really came to myself on the Saturday when I was hanging out with my sisters, and I was saying, we were talking, and I began to realize the enemy is trying to distract me before I cross over in 2026. So anything that he can do to cause distraction, rather it's mentally, rather it's physically, rather it's emotionally, whatever it is that you're going through, he puts it in the way. So you don't get the fulfillment and walk into the purpose that the Father has called you to walk in. Not saying that I feel 100% better, but thank God I'm not feeling the way that I was. But I went from there into something else. And I began to say, Father, it's distractions. So what did I had to do? I had to begin to move some things and refocus and shift my focus into the thing that the Father comes. I had to realize that the consistency and commitment is what I was given for 2025. I've got the unstoppable momentum. And I want to encourage you on the line today that you've got to finish strong. The final stretch is going to require you to have focus. I want you today, I want you to think about something that you can finish, something small that you can finish in the course of this week, a task, a commitment, a forgiveness, a mindset. I want you to realize that momentum begins with one completed thing. Complete something this week. Don't let December discourage your destiny. December can make people feel behind and not enough. But God doesn't measure destiny by the calendar date. He measures this by our obedience and by our faith. We got to remind ourselves that progression, you can't see it all the time, but progression is still there. We don't always see it, but it's still progressing. I want to tell you on today, family and listeners of Tuesday Transformation Tidbit, what God has started in you is still active. You don't feel as though that you're too slow and you're not getting to what it is that the Father's called you to do. Delay is not denied. Sometimes it's divine development. I want you to push in this last month. I want you to keep going in this last month. I want you to realize that you've got to make it to the end. You got to finish strong because God saw in you from the very beginning of 2025 the things that he wanted you to finish. So the final stretch is to strengthen you. Push, family. Push, listeners. Push, audience of Tuesday Transformation Tidbit. I encourage you to push on today. Haven't done all the stand. Continue to stand and continue to go. Next week, we're coming back on week 2, and I'm coming back. And as I said, I'm having tea and talk with some of my sisters until the end of the month. And next week, meet us at 6 a.m. again. And me and my guest next week, we're going to be talking about spiritual declutter. In the midst of our pushing, there are some things that we can't take where we're going. Everything can't go with us in 2026. Not everything deserves to walk alongside with us. There's some releasement. There's some cleaning out. There's some things we need to do. So while we're pushing this week, let's push to the place in our minds, the closets in our minds, and start cleaning us out mentally. Let's start detoxing, as my pastor's been teaching on a Friday. Detox yourself. Get rid of all those things in you, mentally, emotionally, even in your house, your car, wherever you need to detox and declutter. We're going to talk about that next week. Family, listeners, those who are going to come back and do the replay, I want to encourage you on this week. Your final stretch. Strength for the last push. Push on this week. Push in the midst of whatever you're going through. Tell yourself when you wake up in the morning, I still got unstoppable momentum. And my momentum is going to get traction because I'm pushing. Be amazing on today. Be careful out there because they say the weather is going to be inclement. But I want you to be amazing. Shalom. Don't forget to push.